So I asked you, what's my friend looking like? Like a dog in the headlights. I'm sure it's gonna look like we have to divorce. What's my feeling about the divorce right now? I didn't make you feel scary. I just couldn't fight it. Tell me that. You can't control who you leave. Can you? How long has this been going on? The one that she was already leaving. Yeah, you're telling me. No, man, she didn't even know I'm here. But I'm going to tell you myself. Come on. Man to man. We've been here 8 years. You want to just spit the world. It's not about her. Peace. It's about you. You my daughter. Get this little history teaching going on real fast. Let me adjust my camera. We'll get this started in a minute. I'm gonna get comfy since I had a little break. But give me a second.
Milk bone dipped. A treat so tasty, everyone will want to be a dog.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to your email more.
Coated in
Yeah, I got
delicious
you.
peanut butter flavored yum. Dog life's more fun with milk bone dipped.
USA is made for the safe pilots. You can come and slide with Primordial. Lucia, who announces her intentions even if no one's there. Sergeant Moore leaves room for her room with USA Safe Pilot. When you drive safe, you can save 30% on your auto insurance. Get a quote and start saving. USA. Put your leg up, wait for it.
Personalization. Is it okay? We got the new IGN Rewards card, so everything we buy has that new car smell. Stop. I love that. It's here. It smells like a brand new car. Best in class rewards and a great way to earn the next Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, or Cadillac. And those rewards on everything we buy. We're thinking SUV. A new kind of appreciation with that new car smell. Face was even all love. New Dove Shower Lotions with layers of hyaluronic and peptide serums to make your skin feel smoother and more radiant. New Dove One, great skin ingredients for the shower.
Yep.
think we good. I think it's working. Yeah, we almost ready, bro. We got a couple more minutes. Yeah, if you can figure it out, but if you can't, then I can help you. Mm-hmm. That'll be a big plus for everybody. I said that will be a big plus for everybody. We can see if it get a couple more to log in. If not, I'm gonna get back to my work. Yep. Peace. We're gonna highlight a couple books today. We're gonna highlight this book, give a little intro. Oh, yep. And we're gonna highlight a couple other books, man. So I said I had a little time. I'll do this today. But I know a lot of times people will talk about literature and books and things, but won't share the information. So today we're gonna get a chance where you can kind of wrap your idea around some things. And I challenge people to study. I mean, that's the only way you're gonna know a person life changing with what they say and how they act and the words that come out of their mouth. So I always like to use my platform to educate, no matter what you claim, no matter what it is. But I come over here and I try to challenge people to study, to make sure you're removing all biasness. And so you can deal with the science. So like I said, I'm gonna touch a couple of books, and I'm just gonna give some introductions. If I have time, I'm gonna jump into Exhumed of the Nation and just speak on a particular chapter in that, and we're gonna be done. But the first piece of science The first piece of science is this. This is the first piece of science. Please, Brian. This is the first piece of science. It's almost like when you know someone learning and when you know someone into what they're doing, they're going to exhume the science. It's not going to be any bashing of people because we're not around people like that. You become a clean glass and your message become clean. Come on, man. Like, this is a resurrection. Your message become clean when you're studying true history from a non-biased perspective. I told you, as you study, as you learn, as you deal with the right study groups, which the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School is, you will be able to receive literature and have something to compare to historically, educationally, lawfully, and religiously, whatever you want to call it. So when a lot of people make videos and they have a problem with Noble Drew Ali, that's not my concern. I tell people that's a personal problem because you were more, I'm a more before our prophet Noble Drew Ali in the flesh that came to deliver a specific message for that time. I give credit to all the brothers and the empresses that done the work all through history. So when we diss Noble Drew Ali, you got to diss all those that came and give you a message. And when you start doing that, you start discrediting things that can be proven. You start discrediting not only your authors, but all the Europeans that wrote what they saw. So when I come from a perspective, I really hope most Moors study and not deal with feelings. Thank you for the donation. I know we said if you like the teaching, yep, it's Cash App $KGB. If you don't like the teachings, it's all good with me. I have no problem with that. But we can't arbitrarily explain things like this Crips and Bloods when all the signs and symbols belong to the ancient ones. When I talk about history and what was seen, when Moors love Black Law's dictionary, but get the volume 1 Black Law's dictionary and see if there is any definition in there that'll give you the idea of black. I'm coming as an educator. I'm not coming from a biased perspective. That's not my motive. I know who I am. I challenge you to know who you are. And as I start playing films historically and from a scholarship perspective, there's nothing to deny. What most people can say is they're under a belief system, and I'm okay with that. If you believe in Iraq, that's on you. My mission is not force. My whole mission is to tell the world exactly who I am, from history and law and spirituality, and be a guide and a map for not only my people, but for those that are lost as well. That's my mission as a Buddha and a God man. That's my mission. Islam, Noble. So what I tell people is we got to get out of that trying to prove a point and get historical, no matter if you like it or not, because when we talk about law, everyone has a right to a nationality and a right to claim it. And no one will be arbitrarily denied of a right of a nationality and a right to change it. That's the Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15. That's nothing to even debate. Resolution 75, that's a law. When we reach it up, when you research it, that you can annex your Bay and your L. Peace, Empress. Islam, my love to you. But let's get into this scholarship, man. So, the first thing I tell people is like, historically, when I talk about the Louisiana Purchase and the exposition, that whole map that I've been showing people that come from the museum, because a lot of things are locked up in museums, and we just base our understanding on individuals that's mad. I like to call it Negrocentric and Eurocentric propaganda. It can even be propaganda from a Moorish perspective. That's just facts. From a Christianity perspective, from a Al-Islam perspective, from a European and a Negro Mason perspective, when you're not willing to tell all truth and nothing but the truth, because there's nothing to hide. So, I wonder when people diss Moore's legacy and then they hold this up, but I know they never read it all, because books are 400. This book is 400 pages. No disrespect. A lot of adults don't even have an attention span for 20 or 30 minutes. They're tapped out. Now, what a lot of people will do is get a book and read the first couple pages. But just because you read the first couple pages don't mean it can be telling you that everything else is going to be a lie. I'm talking about study and really doing the work. So, Return of the Ancient Ones, the true history uncovered of the Washita, the Dahundii, the Empire, the Washita Files, by Empress Verdice Tierra, Washita, Turner, Gostin, L. Bay, but really it was Tunic, of the Black Washita Empire. But let me give you a little preface of this, and we'll ride along. Consideration of feelings and time has been a main concern. Some scholars welcome truth and some do not, unless they themselves have put in it. You hear that? A lot of scholars don't want to accept the truth unless they put in it, and that goes on today as well. But as an ancient one said, my people die for the lack of knowledge, and I believe it as well. The truth shall set you free. What we need to do is to set free the mind. We cannot free the mind to seek a true knowledge by putting it under a basket. Knowledge is not a lie, it's truth. So when I be talking about first century writers and Europeans, that when I say the European agree with me, when I talk about first century history scholarship, Lewis and Clark said we were here when an exploration was made by them for this country. Research this science. The first, no disrespect, I'm speaking how it's written. The first white man came to our good area and jotted down a his story document. And it said we were here. Philo, Fihol, put us on his map. And he said we were here and owned the place. At that time, he made his map. And the Plano said, we are the people that made the road, the Rio Negro River. The Rio Negro River, as he called it. Now to cover up, we say the Black River. And if I want to know if a horse has teeth, Moors, I will go to a living horse and open its mouth. And that is what we have done. When this piece of literature was written, it took 20 years to find all the pieces. And the writer says that we hope you enjoy it as much as I, the writer, has. It is not literature, it is truth. It is in black and white to read all over. Thank you, Empress Verdice Tierra, Washita, Turner, Gostin, L. Bay. So I don't want to get into all the references. I just want to get into the little preface of the science. I'm honored to ask to write the preface for this book, for it speaks to a great many of my personal beliefs. This book not only greatly assists in dispelling a significant number of the well-placed and well-written lies and deceits that has been laid in our minds, layer after layer, after long and grievous centuries of time, all the while as we slip into the land of Nod, as we ourselves started to assist in the process of helping the master physicianist and master mental trickster to his heart to keep us even longer in the nod. That's the mental trap. And this science will awaken the sleeper and allow you to see through the layers of lies. There's an old saying, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it between the pages of a book. I tell you, man, if brothers really, really research what they talking about and they all have that literature, that's why they wouldn't take that crap to the court of law, because a judge or referee will laugh at them. And I would. And if you are a misnomer black person possessing any gray matter at all, and in any of this world, you owe it to yourself and those behind and around you to study the science, return of the ancient ones. This is the one myth we collectively must shatter, Moors. The Empress book will call to task her recessive child, the keeper of the light. And now she's one of the dominant parents in the process of awakening the nodding ones fully again. And the ones whose time has spoken of will soon approach and greet you, standing on the square properly, postured and holding and giving all of the signs, symbols, and keys of his and her rightful offices. And should you not believe me, just go find a truly conscious Moor, Moor, Muur, and ask that person. This in a preface. I'm in a preface. And people will hold this book up, and I'm like, but so you dissing your Moorish legacy? Who cares how somebody else feel? I'm telling you what's law. Regardless of how anybody else feel, there's no debate. You have a right of a nationality, your race, and your status. If you don't know that, then that's not my issue. I would gladly tell you that. I would gladly tell you, all you gotta do is ask me. I understand about proclaiming, declaring to have due process. I understand exactly who I am. And this book will show and prove with extensive documentation that the deceiving phases have been to a large extent laid open for those who have eyes to see and have heard and mind to understand. For with this book, the mental tricks have been greatly nullified for those who wish to use the gifts of their mind. The Empress of the Washita, the Dahundiyai, has fought, the good fight that even her enemies must show some grudge and respect. And it has been a long, bloody, and protracted fight. And with this book, she's won. If nothing else, a very deep and satisfying victory of actually seeing and feeling it, her book finally in print. So, as you get into the story, Moors, the return of the ancient ones must be read by everyone, especially in the world of the academias, for it surely shall shake the foundations of this ivy-covered walls, for sure. That's why they call it Ivy League, because it's ivy covered. Man, I break down all the European and the Negro so-called Masonic secrets, and it's nothing but child's play. I guarantee you. Only 32 and 33 degrees of wisdom, that's when meteorology, that's when water freezes. That's not high science. That's snowman wisdom. But it's no disrespect to anyone. This is illumination. This is scholarship. I'm giving you Americana, letting you know in history what you have a right of, which the laws say. We dispelling all Eurocentric and Negrocentric propaganda, all pseudo-academia. That's my must as a scholar and an educator and a Moorish divine minister. The truth will set you free and it will make you free. Nothing changes. Law is absolute. You know? But this science, it will shake the wall of academia for sure. Some it must anger, and others it will definitely more than please. The Empress has survived. as this history shaking contents of this profoundly powerful book will attest to. And as far as all of those details you might just weigh, well, that's another book. Okay, but I must say again, that is truly an honor to be asked to write these words. What this book says is that if America is a land of people who live by the law and are governed and ruled by the respect of that law, well, this book speaks to just such a law, and it's international law. This book will fill you with pride and knowledge, as well as tap into a wellspring of anger, which when anger's channel is good, Morris, I'm telling you, I teach this. But let not anger consume you. This book will enlighten you, but let not that push you into wishful thinking, but just as a suggestion. This book begs you to start asking questions and do your own personal research regarding your Moorish history, and then allow your mind to connect the two. Then you say to yourself, let us deal with facts, not public opinion. The mental journey this book will take you on will well be worth the effort and the small price. And I don't know how much they make it on Amazon. You can go right on mypdfbooks.com, book with the Z, and download it for a fraction of the price. Go to Office Max and Staples. They'll download it and put it in book form for you. Everything I talk about, you can go on mypdbooks.com and download them on your tablet. That's Books with the Z. The mental journey, you got to understand what it takes. But last but not any means the least, it is the duty of every parent, and even more so if that parent is one of the human race, that they buy this book for their child and read it first themselves. That's why I know when I asked them Morris, I said, have you all read Before the Mayflower? They said, what is that? I said, man, you don't know what Before the Mayflower is? All this new stuff, I can teach you Before the Mayflower about the secret treaty of Verona, about the Whigham Party, all that stuff, man. In that science. That's why I said, I know brothers not studying. You know, but you should read it for yourself, you know, and then discuss it in depth with your children regarding the lies that have been dispelled, so that we can get a better appreciation for ourselves and for our own true history as it has been told, seen throughout our own eyes. As the Empress, this extraordinary woman's book, Return of the Ancient Ones, has so beautifully done. And so I'm going to give a couple inserts in it. I'll jump around a little bit because I want to talk about just a few things in here. Then I'll go right to the next subject. I want to read something for you. Where it go? Like I said, this science. So it is not given to mankind to tell the whole truth without polishing it up a bit to get the sound effect that suits his lying fancy to mislead the readers. Their lies spelled Washita, or Quachita. The Washita Nation is a black, bushy-headed people, like Solomon, who was black, and his head was bushy. I recommend you read Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5 and 6. His head, chapter 5 and 11. When the exploiters came, we were already here. When God created Adam, he was smart enough. Yes, he invented reading and writing, and his creator was a writer. Adam wrote the books of Adam, Genesis 5 and 1. God wrote commandments on a table of stone when he wrote a pattern on the blueprint of how to build a mound for the people. The mound built by God, blueprints, is right here in the Washita of Dehundahai, Exodus chapter 20 and 26. Now a little sick, half-starved Diego couldn't by no means pilot a ship. In fact, Morris, that was not his name. See Columbus log. I do not want to take from an innocent child. All I want you to digest is the fact that Pedro el Negro, or Peter, the black nigger, was the pilot or navigator of the Nina, the lead of Mr. Columbus's ships. That is why the word nigger, N-I-G-G-E-R, doesn't bother the writer. In that these is the writer's words. I take one G out, and I have Niger, N-I-G-E-R. The missing link has always been here, black. All men came from a black pair. However, the most educated would rather teach a lie that he came from a monkey without explaining who made the monkey. The white lies about the missing links. It stinks. What Columbus did find was a city of black people who fed him and gave him gifts, gold and cotton, cloth, which they, the blacks, had manufactured. And I can imagine his surprise, because remember, he went back with ships. With more, remember? The War of Ferdinand and Isabella. What in the world is the skating across the waters? A big fish, a skiff, or what? That must have been the question. Men, black, where are we? Back in Africa? Question mark. That must have been their reply. Our imaginations can play with us on the reactions in 1492 AD. The real truth is in Columbus' sea log. In this sea log, it's no disrespect, man, it's just history. That's why I said pseudo-academia is no good. A scholar should be able to create his own platform and teach. We should be able to tell our history, which the religious rights of the indigenous people clearly speaks. We have the right to teach our own history. We have the right for our clothing and our cultural dress. We have the right to have a tribal leader. We have a right to not assimilate. We have a right to have our own bylaws. Pedro el Negrito, that is Peter the nigger, the pilot or navigator of the lead ship, came on the deck to take control. No one bowed to the sailors, as history tells us. Of course, history can say it the way they were pleased to write, as it was his story. It would have been much easier on all of us if they had just written the plain truth like Columbus wrote in his sea log. Research it, Morris. This king who was black did not come to a common ship, Admiral. He bade Columbus to come to him. In this city was a factory. It was a factory that made cloth from cotton. They gave the hungry sailors food. See facts from his log with the map drawn for or by Columbus in his own words. Why did history lie? When I tell you it's pseudo-academia, that's what I went to the university for. I didn't go to beg for a job. You know, if everybody else can create their schools, why we can't? That's why I said I'm getting back teaching the children. I don't have time to try to teach an old dog new tricks. This is a gift. We got to be willing to support something that's real. So we can say, yeah, we do have scholars that can teach in the literature before it's all gone. We do have someone that's able to get all the literature and make it available for all of us. A lot of these books, I tell y'all, they're going to make them so expensive. They already been doing it. Go on Amazon and you'd be like, why this book costs $1,000? And she got it and converted it to a PDF for $40 and $50. And then it becomes electric. It's like an NFT. You have it forever. You don't get that. And then you can provide it to your friends that's into the science like you. It becomes electric. That's how the information will be spread. But somebody have to be the orchestrator of it. A workman is due his hire. Or we okay with all these other platforms selling y'all the paper books for super thousands of dollars. And we're not going to support Moorish business, somebody that you say we love. This too simple. It's simple, right? This is simple. A lie goes or runs a long time according to folklore, but finally the good old truth overtakes and boxes its ears. The truth is the real missing link in the history taught to our children, black and misnomer white and misnomer black. When the truth is left out, history becomes a lie, a whitewashed lie. That is where the statement, little white lies, came from. History, his lie. The missing link is the discovery of America by so-called Christopher Columbus. The discovery is filled so full of lies, and every scholar knows this. This is not propaganda, this is scholarship. Just like, man, when I talk about Winston Churchill, like I'm from Flint, Michigan, and this is a restaurant downtown called Churchill's, and they got Winston Churchill's pictures in there and all that. And I said, that's all, no disrespect. I said, we don't do the history and see the atrocities that Winston Churchill did in India. See it for your own eyes. See what Mussolini did with their own eyes. Hell, Winston Churchill was responsible for more mass murder, genocide than damn near so-called Hitler. No disrespect to no one. But if you would try to eliminate some of the lies, there would be no discovery to read about. The links have been left out of the chain of discoveries to make a sound effect that make good reading. A white lie does not make it a righteous lie. This white lie is worse than all black lies that have ever been told. This lie is a no disrespect, a white man's lie. And then I say it's Negro-centric propaganda too, when our own so-called educators will sit and lie to your face. No disrespect, the misnomer European Albion woman, I'm just writers. I have no problem with no one. I'm reading to you. Was not writing then. They were not allowed to sail or discover then. Columbus was not a stranger to black men. He was from Spain and got his knowledge of the sea from black men. The Moors had ruled Spain for 900 years. Didn't y'all listen to a Stevie Wonder song? What is it? Misrepresented People? In 1492, you fell upon our shores. 700 years, educated by the Moors. Prior to 1492, the admiral on the lead ship was Pedro el Negrito, or Mr. Peter, the nigger, as he was called even then. That is the reason why the word does not rock my boat. This is the writer saying this. Even a stupid person would know that a little sick boy named Diego did not navigate the lead ship. He was undernourished, had no mother, forever on the go, half-starved, and looking for someone to finance his father's voyage. They had no money. Diego's first attempt to pilot would have led to mutiny. It was Pedro who found them half-starved and fed them. It was also his arrows fitted with gold, silver, and brass tips that made the greedy old queen decide to finance the ships. Even when I started talking about Empress Nanny of the Jamaican Maroons, man, I haven't even touched the surface. He traveled a many hungry miles on foot, to pour for horses. It was impossible for Diego to pilot a lead ship. He had not been to school or on a ship when he started out, as they had none, until he met the greedy queen. And if Pedro el Negro had not been with Mr. Columbus with that quiver of golden arrow, and see, I love that word quiver. And see, I'm not even gonna get into understanding what quiver means, how people misquote things, but that's a whole nother statement. Of golden arrows with 4 different precious metals on the tips. Old Columbus never would have gotten a ship for his trip. I am sure Columbus, just like any man, wanted the credit for his little boy. But one thing he forgot, it was Pedro or Peter's arrows. He had found the washed ashore body. He was a black Moor who had ruling power 900 years before the whites in Spain. The nigger, as they called him then and now, could write. He kept a log on his ship. When Columbus made his copies for the final one, he forgot to omit the name of Peter the nigger. The truth would be what really happened on arrival to these shores. A black man reached the land first. A black king was found on the shores to greet the arrival of guests from the sea. All of this is in Columbus' logs. Why was it not included in history? Your guess is as good as mine, Moors. But we, in this book, are not guessing here. This is not your usual guessing game. History taught us that these poor people were so frightened that they thought a god had turned too many white gods and came ashore. And these poor people bowed on their knees to the white man. What a lie. What Mr. Columbus got was a welcome and hospitality. Now, being white, he tried to get this king to be the one to come to him. But let us read Columbus's own words and see his own map, the missing truth. This was a beautiful city and handsomely constructed by the engineers of today. It's one of the wonders of the building world. Who can say that they were not civilized, as they had a government? The white man has always lied to cover a reason for plunder of other nations. And this is just the writer. Don't be mad at what I'm saying. I'm reading the story. If you okay with people talking about history and your history started as slavery, we can't talk about that. When I get historical, every time it's so-called misnomer Black History Month, they want to teach you about slavery and some Willie Lynch, but they ain't gonna teach you about white cargo. They ain't gonna teach you about they were white and they were slaves, but they want to lie to you about your history start with some goofy slavery, and that's a lie. And I ain't saying everybody ain't from Africa. I'm saying I'm an American, and I'm telling you it's a history that you don't know about. And if you do know about it, shame on you for not telling the truth. That's what I'm saying. My history ain't no damn slaves. If that's the case, I can prove exactly what you're saying about white cargo. And they were white and they were slaves. If you want to talk about some transatlantic slave trade, what about the Arab slave trade? What's happening today? If we're going to talk about all history, let's talk about it all. That's what we must do to clear it up. And we do not want to dwell too much on Columbus' voyage, as he never made it to the Washita himself. The later followers found their way to Rich Valley by following the route on the road of the Negroes. The waterway was used as roads. This is called Rio Negro. This is what Washita meant, black. This is why the white men, had to change a word or substitute a word for Washita. But its sounds never changed. This does not mean all of whites were wicked. They were making a name for themselves. This was important to them then and now. The truth, many hurt a teeny bit, but we got to tell it. A white lie does not make a lie a good lie. A lie is a lie. And the time has come for us to pull the cover off the lie, whereas the naked truth can come forth without any clothes on, just bare facts. Now we will let you see the map of the so-called discovery. When I show you the map of things, I want y'all to read things for yourself. I'm not going to narrate this whole book, but I want to highlight, and you can get this science from mypdfbooks.com, book with the Z. And it breaks down all the history. I mean, very simple. I don't want to stay too deep in it, but I hope y'all getting to understand it. Let me read the back of it real fast. Consideration of feelings and time has been a main concern. Some scholars welcome the truth, and some do not, unless they themselves have put in. But as an ancient one said, my people die for a lack of knowledge. I believe this, as I believe the truth shall set you free. What we need to do is to set free the mind. We cannot free a mind to seek a true knowledge by putting it under a basket. Knowledge is not a lie, it is truth. Lewis and Clark said we were here when an exploration was made by them for this country. The first white man came to our good area and jotted down a history document, said we were here first. Philo put us on his map, and he said we were here and owned the place at the time he made his map. And Plano said we were the people that made the road, Rio Negro River, as he called it. Now to cover up, we say the Black River, right? The state of Louisiana was originally stolen and illegally sold as a Louisiana purchase. I showed y'all that map right in the museum. And I show you how Morocco and Jerusalem is right next to each other. Morocco and Jerusalem, like an hour away. I show you all this stuff was already here. The ground plans, you'll be like, this look familiar. Yeah. It's like when I show you Thomas Jefferson Quran, nothing is original. You'll be like, wait a minute. I'll be like, hey, don't be mad at me. I show you history. I deal with history. So the next piece of science is this one. Signs and Symbols of the Primordial Man by Albert Churchward. I try to tell people, man, I'm like, listen, you don't got to, I know Moors don't study and read. To be a real scholar and be a real philosopher, you must be in your laboratory with your test tubes and your beakers. And then the science is just not a book. You should be able to exhume it and live it in all facets. So, this right here, signs and symbols of the primordial man, right? I'll give a little bit. He was a student of Gerald Massey. The republication of this book, The Signs and Symbols of the Primordial Man, at this time is more than appropriate. Dr. Albert Churchward was the best-known British disciple of Gerald Massey, whose 6-volume work, Ancient Egypt, The Light of the World, 2 volumes, A Book of the Beginnings, 2 volumes, and Natural Genesis, 2 volumes, set in motion a new and radical approach to the history of African civilization and African contribution to the social thought that went into the making of the world's 3 major religions. Listen clearly: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. What do I clearly teach? That's the triple rows of what? The adapt chamber. That's why I be telling people, when you're dealing with a Moor that call himself a sheik and he dissing masonry, he's a clown. Because your pedigree is Moor. The science is masonry. I mean, you are a Mason. Our Moors Quran talk about our workman tools, but then you should be able to exhume this in real life. Standing on your scourge, that's not with your feet out. That's asinine. Understanding these degrees and being that in true life, being a true adapt in real life, gets you access. These is facts. The three major religions is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That's the triple roll of the adapt chamber. When we talk about the 3 religious right, the Paraclete, right? The Fatimid, right? The Jerusalem, the Christian per se. Come on, man. We're talking about understanding wisdom, not hate. It's difficult to assess the value of Dr. Churchward's great contribution to history without referring to his master teacher, Gerald Massey. Massey did not begin his career searching for Africa's place in the world. He was an agnostic whose intention was to prove that the basis of European civilization was created outside of Europe by people that some Europeans later characterized as savages without a history of a culture. His search led him to Egypt, where he found proof that Western cultures was, in fact, African in origin, the larger portion of its coming mainly from the Nile Valley. His disciple, Albert Churchward, continued his important work, and his book takes his search into another dimension. Men like Gerald Massey and Albert Churchward were battling against a wall of European misinformation about the contributions of non-European people toward the civilization of the world. And only a few radical European scholars were able to understand the full impacts of Churchward's work. At that time, this book was written. That's when I clearly state, I don't care what no one looks like me saying, if you a true scholar, the European agree with me. I'm telling you what I'm telling you. And if you don't want your history, someone will take it gladly. What is the essential message of Albert Churchward today in an era of scholarship and new and bold challenges to old concepts about his story of the world and contribution of African people toward the origins and development of the world civilization and culture? Albert Churchward begins his work with an examination of Freemasonry, its rituals, signs, and symbols, and their contribution to the social thought. What is he saying? In essence, is that Freemasonry was a part of the Nile Valley civilization. By extension, he also says that the higher learning, which was carefully guarded at early times in history, gave birth to secret societies. In these secret societies, there exists the educational approach that will lead to the establishment of the world's first universities. What he says, in fact, is that the origin of the university comes out of the Nile Valley civilizations. African people develop signs and symbols as a way of communication and delivering messages. It is most unfortunate that most people who today are members of these so-called secret societies have no in-depth knowledge of the history of the society and the unifying role it played in the early intellectual life of the Nile Valley Moors. It is through Churchward's examination of most of the known cultures of the people of his day that the signs and symbols of primordial man is revealed. At this juncture, we need to be reminded that the Nile Valley stretches over 4,000 miles into the body of Africa, and that the creations of the Nile Valley civilization cannot be attributed only to the portion of the North Africa that the Greeks called Egypt. The Nile River was the world's first great cultural highway, Moors, bring people and cultures out of the body of inner Africa, Moors. This great cultural migration led to the peopling of Egypt, Moors. A lot of people came down from Nubia, per se, making Egypt a composite civilization comprised of different African people who dwelled along the banks of the Nile River. The civilization that developed in Egypt was a culmination of civilization in Africa. None of the components that went into the making of what we now call Egypt came from Europe or Western Asia, commonly called the Middle East, Moors. At this point in history, we cannot discuss Europe because there was no Europe. There was no Europe. There was no Europe. In the name and a political entity in the world, Europe did not exist. There was no mention of Europe in early ancient history because at that time, Europe was very busy, trying to extract herself from the impact of the last of the ice ages. Surviving and just staying alive was the most serious thing that the Europeans were engaged in at that time in early history. This is what I tell everyone that be trying to argue. Thanks for the donations. If you like the teachings, it's Cash App $KGBay. $20 donation, I give you 2 pieces of literature and a free whatever, man. I give literature. That's what I do. If you want to give a donation and you want literature, I would give you literature. I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. You'll get something for your donation. And if you don't want to give a donation, that's fine. But in connection with this science, there is also a need to examine the works of the greatest American disciple of Gerald Massey, Alvin Boyd Kuhn, Kuhn. Alvin Boyd, Boyd, Kuhn. I'm going to always give you reference. Kuhn is best known for his book, Who is the King of Glory? I have all these books. Every 2 weeks, I'm uploading more books, PDFs on mypdfbooks.com. And you can go on Amazon and compare the prices. If a book on Amazon for $10, I'm gonna have it on my page for about like $4. So you can have it. And then you can get it printed. You can have it forever. You can share it with your homie. You be like, no, I ain't giving you my book. Here you go. You want it? Here go the PDF for this price. Bam. Which, in my opinion, is the best book on early Christianity. You know? Is the best book on Christianity. Shadow of the 3rd century. Deals with the Conference of Nicaea and its aftermath, especially the opinion of an African theologian known in history as St. Augustine. I thank for the donation. He said, man, say your Cash App. Gratitude. And tell her I said thank you for the nice words, Noble. But in referring to the European participation in the Conference of Nicaea, St. Augustine said, in effect, these people are trying to revamp and give back to us a concept we had for over 3,000 years. St. Augustine, in identifying the early African origins of the concept that Europeans would later call Christianity, is indicating that this concept existed among African people without the dogma and formalization before the birth of Europe. In their introduction to Who is the King of Glory, Alvin Boyd Kuhn has this to say. And thank for the donation again, more. I appreciate it. But this is what he says. The pick that struck the Rosetta Stone in the loamy soil of the Nile Delta in 1796 also struck a mighty blow at historical Christianity, for it released the voice of a long voiceless past to refute nearly every one of Christianity's historical claims. With a withering negative, decrypted literature of old Egypt sealed in silence when Christianity took its rise, but haunting it like a specter after the 3rd century, now stalks forth like a living ghost out of the tomb to point its long finger of accusation at a faith that has too long thriving on falsity. For that literature now rises out of oblivion to proclaim the true source of every doctrine of Christianity as Egyptian, the product and heritage of a remote past. The books of old Egypt now unroll the sagas of wisdom, which announce the inexorable truth that now a single doctrine, a rite, a tenet, or usage in Christianity was a new contribution to the world religion, but that every article and practice of that faith was a disfigured copy of ancient Egyptian systematism or systemism. The entire Christian Bible, creation, legend, descent into the Exodus from Egypt, Ark, the flood, the allegory, Israelite history, Hebrew prophecy and poetry, gospels, epistles, revelation, imaginary, all are now proven to have been transmissions of ancient Egyptian scrolls and papyri into the hands of the later generations who knew neither their true origin nor the fathomless meaning, but the sheer fact that even amid the murks of ignorance and superstition, the mere ghost, the shell, the husk, and the shadow of Egypt's wisdom inspired religious piety to extremes of faith and zealotry, is singularly attestation of its original power and majesty. From the scrolls of papyri, 5,000 to 10,000 years old, there comes stalking forth to view the whole story of an Egyptian Jesus raising from the dead an Egyptian Lazarus and an Egyptian Bethany with two Egyptian Maoris present, the non-historical prototype of the incident related only in John's Gospels. And in a collective way, Gerald Massey, the master, and his disciples, Albert Churchward and Alvin Boyd Kuhn, have revealed the early African's origin of the three major Western religions. All of these concepts were developed before the Bible was written and before the figure in history known as Jesus the Christ was born. Alvin Boyd Kuhn's book, The Lost Christianity, also needs to be read as an extension of the views expressed in the above quoted works by Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan and John G. Jackson and other modern scholars have reconsidered this information and prepared it for the use and understanding of students and teachers of our time. I refer you to Dr. Jochanan's book, The African Origins of the Major and Western Religions, and John G. Jackson's Man, God, and Civilization. In conclusion, as they say in the legal profession, I rest my case. So I'm not going to jump all into it. I just wanted to, give some preface because I can jump all into the science in this, but I don't want to do that. I challenge you to go on mypdfbooks.com and be a part of our more study group because we go over every book. We have adapt classes every Saturday, and we going over our Moore's Quran and our Quranic study guide. We almost done with that, and then we jumping right in our Discover Key questionnaires and our catechism to understanding the Moore's Quran. So I just wanted to touch on, I'm telling you, we on good time. If you like the teachings, yep, it's Cash App $KG Bay. There's another piece of literature. On Amazon, it's $250. They're gonna make this about $1,000 in a minute. I'm telling you. So in this science, I'm not gonna stay too deep in it. I'm just gonna highlight a particular chapter in the science. On page 79, it's talking about Freemasonry and the Illuminati. When I talk about, it's a vast distinction between Western Freemasonry, usually called Freemasonry, then the old-time Mastery, Masonry. The true Masonry, as originally developed by the God-men of Africa, was designed as a ladder which climbed from the finite to the infinite heart of the fallen humanity back to the heart of his or her creator. These holy instructions became a 24/7 way of life for ourselves, that's masterminds. Carnal men later reduced this spiritual unfoldment to like a ritual called religious services. And in true Masonry, there are a series of tools. It's a series of tools used to create a building not made by hands. the temple of the perfected man. And no disrespect, man. Just like they tell you the truth in movies. They called them Tomb Raiders. What do you think Tomb Raiders was? No disrespect, Europeans coming in there stealing stuff. Just like, man, listen, man. Just like in college, when the Europeans said that they grew up in caves with dinosaurs, and I say, okay, so if you say you grew up in caves with dinosaurs, how the hell are you gonna say you the father of civilization and you ain't have running water, you ain't have heat, and you ain't have shoes on your feet and a house to cover your head? Are you kidding me? I mean, and you say that's your history? Some caveman shit? Excuse my candor. Man, don't come with me with no dumb games. Please don't do that. And then we can get in medicine and destroy all that too. So please, we dealing with history. Let's deal with it. When the Tomb Raiders, when Tomb Raiders came, you know who they were. Pillagers. When Tomb Raiders, we know who the Tomb Raiders were. Pillaged the universities. What y'all thought the temples were just places where they just stored monuments and things and dead bodies and things? No, those were the schools and the lodges of ancient Egypt. They stole and killed for everything they could see. The sacred pathways are called so-called Solomon's Temple. Don't y'all know they built things on top of monuments? I tell y'all, listen, I deal with scholarship. That's why they feel Solomon's Temple is it's things under it. Just like they always destroy things when misnomer Negroes built on top of it. I can show you this all through history. So we can't be mad at me. Later, the stolen tools, symbols, and rituals were used to build the Roman Catholic, the York Scottish Rite orders, and used against their African victims. That's why they created Prince Hall for you, because they didn't want to be around you. So they created some for misnomer Negroes. Put dead, replace black and put dead in front of everything. Dead masonry, dead, 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 dead. According to science and law, black means death. And I ain't even got all with in the clock of destiny with all that mystic stuff. We gonna destroy all that mystic crap. And I'm just telling the truth. And they used against the so-called African victims, the Western orders, now beehived into the so-called Illuminati. But I cleared up, we are the enlightened ones. When you deal with signs and symbols, to most devout Masons, as I explained, Freemasonry, a god made of certain European men who they self-serve. Freemasonry, as one of the most powerful gods of Europe, is the source from which the pale-skinned males drew the strength to give themselves the title white. I'm just telling you signs and symbols. I'm not coming from nobody's place. So please stay in context. White is accepted as normal and often understood as proper when Europeans are being addressed. However, in the ministries of our teachings, it's propaganda. Negro, blacks, and color call people outside themselves their God. It's just what it is. And the purpose of this science is to breathe life into the unconscious psyche of the Moors, but to exhume our bodies whole as a people, intact as a nation. Surely as a brother, Joshua told to John, the truth will make you free. And in any case of raising the dead, and in any case, more of raising the dead, you must do this. It's handiwork of masterminds. That's the conquest of the illusionist, the obstacle between the dormant life and the certainty of this resurrection. As for the entity of Freemasonry and the role it plays in the resurrection of the so-called Negro people, if a person needs to get from Wednesday to Friday, he must go through Thursday. So it's not disrespectful to go through that. So I'm teaching this in science and wisdom. When one wants to go to the tomb of the unknown nation buried underneath the Constitution of the United States, where the unconscious African lays in a state, he or she must go through the secret seal of Freemasonry. The fraternal order is the secretly sealed stone of opposition that guards the interests of the dismal Crip Moors. History occurred during the later few centuries reveals someone placed these events in a certain order Moors. Today, Freemasonry stands as the major blockage of Negro, blacks, and colored people attained of nationhood under our free national name and rejoining the nations under the human family. So I don't want to stay all into this, but it's there, even the beginning of Freemasonry. It's different. Western Freemasonry and African self-mastery, whose ancient educators were centered in Kemet. No disrespect, but Negro orders, European orders of Freemasonry are built upon the letter of the universal law stolen from Africa's grand temples. Everything, the tools, signs, symbols, most of the manifests seen by the carnal eye were pillaged northward into Egypt, tomb raiders. Western Freemasonry should never be considered something as beneficial. If you're going to lie, and all lodges of Freemasonry are built upon sciences, tools, signs, symbols, laws, and rituals. I'm telling you, the European agree with me. Pillars from the temples and universities and lodges of Northeast and Northwest Africa. You can't deny what I'm saying. Contrary to the Masons' decree of being free, ancient, and accepted, Freemasonry, as it's established today, only recently began at the turn of the 18th century. First recorded meeting was held on June 24th, 1717 in London, England, in a tavern called the Goose and the Gridiron. I can show y'all all this stuff, and we don't even have to get all in it. When people be lying to you about the Mason coffin and the African acacia tree, when I show you the signs and symbols, what they know, what they show you, all the signs and symbols, what everyone knows. And I don't want to stay too deep in that. I just wanted to show you that. I end with this, with two statements. The Masonic story of Hiram Abiff. Once during a time, there lived a king whose greatest desire was to build a temple for the sole purpose of serving his creator. The king's name was Solomon, and he was the wisest master builder dedicated to the following temple and blueprint designed by his grand architect. King Solomon summoned the most accomplished craftsmen in civilized world, India, Persia, China. The call was for the masters of the order of Melchizedek from the sacred school of the Nazarites. This pestilent brother is a ringleader of the Nazarites. An African brother named who? Hiram Abiff, who was also a master of building tools, also answered the Nazarite call. There was one Hiram from the kingdom of Tyre, the capital of which was Sidon, in the village of Zephrah, where he lived with his mother. One of Hiram's specialty was constructing pillars. The purpose of a pillar is to support that which is above with that which is below. Sound familiar, don't it? Hiram's headdress, called the fez, depicted the mastery of his craft. Read it in 1 Kings, the 7th chapter. The other biblical Hiram is from Tyre. Hiram Abiff became the master builder of King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. One day, as Hiram with his tools was on his assigned route, 3 Rufins, it's like when I talk about the 3 Stooges, the 3 Rufins attacked him. The 3 robbers named Jubela, and Jublim. It's in your biblical scriptures. They stole Hiram's tools and clothes. The 3 assailants were from the sun-cursed tribes. The sun-cursed, not the sun-kissed. The sun-cursed. Hey, all you got to do is read the scriptures. You can't be mad at me. We're after the secrets of King Solomon's temple and were besides themselves for not being invited to the building of the grand temple. Hiram Abiff stood naked before them, and after they saw he did not have the key to King Solomon's temple, the thieves knocked Hiram in the head with the setting maul, killing him at high noon. To hide their crimes, the murderers buried Hiram in a shallow grave in the northern portion of the kingdom. Don't that sound familiar when they always talk about the North Gate? Why the North Gate is so important? I'm telling you, man. And concealed the grave with an evergreen plant on top of it. What? The acacia leaf. I'm telling you, would these Negro Masons be lying, acting like they don't know? A search party of Hiram's fellow craftsmen came in need of their master builder. When the 3 Jews were questioned whether they had seen Hiram on their straight way, they each denied any knowledge of him, but were beheaded. That's why when I tell you, man, listen, I'm going to tell you clearly. I love all my brothers. That's why our teaching says not responsible for what you didn't know then. But when you know, and then you act like you don't know, like when I be dealing, like I'm from Flint, Michigan, but I'm in a red state. I'm in Arizona. I travel all over. And I be meeting different brothers that be Masons and I'm part of the Philosophical Society and different, thought processes. So if you're a Mason and if you in a fraternity, you signed a charter. And I tell brothers, there's no reason to lie. Like, we can't call our companies Acacia and then act like they don't know. That's what they use to mark where, Haram is built, was buried. And they put the evergreen plant on top of it. A search party of Haram's fellow craftsmen came in need of their master builder. When the 3 Jews were questioned whether they had seen Haram on the straightway, they each denied any knowledge of him and were beheaded. And that's what these brothers do. They act like they don't know. No, and I said, well, you're gonna be beheaded. This is like I'm part of something. I'm a Freemason, and I named my company after these things where they buried Haram Abif at, and they put the acacia leaf, and I act like I don't know. I just say I just thought it was something in Africa, and I'm not talking about anybody specifically, but I'm saying, ain't that a bee? I told you, when brothers under a certain thing, they always gonna play stupid and play a game with you, and just try to sell you things. They continued their search in the south, east, and west, but his body was finally found in the north after 4 long days, which they call 400 years. All the king's men could not fit the son of a widow from the grave intact. Only the king would know the right grip, the master's grip, the right grip to raise Haram Abif from the grave. And so it came to pass in 1913, in that time, Noble Ali returned the ancient Egyptian mystery teachings to the fallen sons and daughters of North America. And all Freemasons vowed by a series of death oaths to be brutally mutilated prior to his death before he would dare reveal the truth about Haram, the widow's son. Ask him. I'm telling you right now. That's why they lie to you. I'm telling you. I know every Moor that's a Freemason. I'm from Flint, Michigan. I know a lot of Moors. They buy a lot of stuff from people, and people think just because people buy things from them like that means something. And I say it don't mean nothing to me. You know? It don't mean nothing to me. Period. All Freemasons vow by a series of death oaths. That's why research Steve Coakley when they show you the Greek is a lie, and they bow down to they talk about they some Greek gods. Research it. Can't be mad at nothing I'm saying. If you're right, you're right. But and the truth is the truth. They all agree to be brutally mutilated prior to his death before he or she would dare reveal the truth about Haram, the widow's son. These vows of secrecy are behind every major and minor setback of this Jim Crowism. And you can't be mad, because I showed y'all everything that was in the Jim Crow Museum in Grand Rapids. I showed y'all the books. I lecture on this stuff, what they think about the Negro. Physically and mental enslavement of Africans in the European history of the Americas. No disrespect. These oaths are as serious as the open chemical warfare and should be taken lightly by anyone. It shouldn't be taken lightly, especially the victims. And the true story of Haram Abif, the widow's son, is the reenactment of the entombing of the African family, hereby called Moors, for ancestral and legal purposes. This is the world's greatest secret, kept from the human family, since Yahshua was kept in India and Egypt for 18 years. This same African God-man can be seen today as he lays in the state under the word person in the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Every president must swear under oath to keep the murder hidden and the body of the new African nation buried, so help me God. This stuff is free information. When I tell people I study in the Royal Archives, the Library of Congress, I'm part of the Philosophical Research Society, and I have real degrees. I spoke like this in academia, and the laws protect me. I ain't making nothing up as I go. I can prove everything in scholarship and come with main research. Religion, slavery equals Freemasonry. Yep, I'm almost done. Thanks for the donation. If you like the teachings, let me know. If you don't like the teachings, there's no reason to be here. In the beginning, 1460 to 1492 through 1555 to 1619, the enslavement of the Moors was a religious issue. Remember, it was supported by the Jews with their Torah. It was enforced by the Muslims with their Quran and the Bukhari Hadith. When we talk about the Arab slave trade right now, under the cross, from the Roman Catholic Pope, the Vatican, to the Christian churches of Europe, King James I solicited the literary expertise of Shakespeare. So his vision and his version of the Bible would endorse slavery as an act ordained by God. As for the business ends of these great religions, the Muslims supply Africans for the slave trade, the Jews tax their interest earned on their investment, and this marks the beginning of today's economical development on a globe. But as we end with this, we talk about the so-called widow's son. That's the joke. It's a myth made from the minds of Western Freemasonry and cloaked in secrecy. And most lies originate from some degree of truth. Just like when people be comedians, a lot of their jokes are sometimes founded on a little bit of reality. Just like all European Masonic rituals, sign tools, symbols are diluted reflections of African originations. The so-called widow son is no expectation or exception to these fundamental human principles. In European Masonry, the widow son is descriptive of the West African God man, whose code name is Haram Abif. Haram Abif, the widow son. Generally, code names are used by secret societies, government officials, right? Military intelligence, and other worldly thinkers to conceal true identities of the operations and agents, just like pen names, pseudonym. When we talk about Flavius Josephus that wrote the New Testament, I tell you all that's fake. And you couldn't argue with me and take that to court and base your understanding on your religious dogma without researching all the history, what I'm telling you. Code names are nom de plumes, trickle down to the hoi polloi and used as nicknames, alias, AKA stage names, pseudonyms, pen names, no matter the social level. Deceptive or false identifications are used to hide the correct and proper person, place, or thing, family. Haram Abif, the widow son, originated from the same European minds which created the same Negro, black, colored people. 3/5 claw, the pictures of so-called Jesus, the trust and legal tender, a man-made gods formed in the bust of past presidents, of course. Man, when I show y'all all that stuff, them Wickham parties and all that fake stuff, what they be showing you, and I show you what's in the museums, all that stuff is fake, it's propaganda. And I show you where all those people with them wigs come from. I'll show you. You'll be like, what? I say yes. You cannot be mad at me. It's history. And the average so-called scholar, they don't know what I'm talking about. And most Black Masons, they don't know what I'm talking about because they under an illusion, under Western Freemasonry. The table has been set for learning the truth about the widow's son. The life of any widow begins with the death of her husband. Listen to what I'm saying. And she has not remarried. A widow is a respected but unprotected woman. An unprotected woman is a first alert. Listen to the science denoting the fall of a nation. When I talk about the atrocities of a single mom, when I talk about that in this science. But we talk about symbolically, the widow is a code word descriptive of a nation, an adversary who cannot defend itself or prosper because its government and power has become substandard. Most churches and secret societies collect donations called widow's mite to help women who have been widowed. The laws of the marriage bond has raised her from female to woman to support the high station of wife. From there, she was raised to motherhood because she alone can create a God in 9 months without the sound of a hammer or nail. Allegedly, Moors, Haram Abif, the widow's son, prosperity has now been compromised with the death of his father. Secretly, her son's code name is Haram Abif, but publicly, his shallow grave has been clearly marked and accepted as the misnomer Negro, Black, and colored people. Now, if the reader and if the student can imagine the widow as Amexima, Africa, and her son, the God-man of the Nile, then you can see why the furthest thing from this so-called Willie Lynch, we know that's propaganda. That was a made-up thing from a Western Masonic mind, is the possibility of Haram Abif being raised from the constitutional shallow grave, whole and intact, as one nation bearing one free national name, which the Revolution 75 clearly states you have the right. There is no such thing as a perfect or unpunished crime. And this holds especially for the great crime of denationalization or denationalized slavery and global cover-up of the Western African nationals. There is only one major problem with this seemingly mystical and unsolved crime of the cycle age. The nations of Europe have not taken into account that the divine order of things. That's why the great God of their forefathers and the major prophets, who will always be sent to make the last first again. Then quietly, after years of extended slavery, enters the Savior. In that time, we can't deny that Noble Drew Ali did something for people, just like every other scholars did something. Noble Drew Ali did something with the resurrection of the first Grand Temple in the West. He did. That's why there can never be a widow when Allah is the husbandman. Right? Listen to this. Our prophet teach you this. I teach you about this so-called widow son. And the first thing that our prophet taught you, the first thing that I taught the Moors is actually the very last thing that a Mason earns the privilege to know. Who made you? Allah, the great God. And man is a thought of Allah. And thoughts of Allah are infinite. And they are not measured up by time. And man is not the body nor the soul. He is the spirit and a part of Allah. So spirit, man, and seed of Allah held deep within himself the attributes of every part of Allah. That's arm, leg, arm, head. That's the pentagram. And seeds are perfect as the source from which they come. But they are not unfolded into the life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deeply planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, and thus the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed came forth from the heart of Allah, was full ordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. So you got to understand the lessons of the Moor's children. There can never be no widow because Allah, the great God of the universe, is the husbandman. Moors, the soil of soul, with her actions of thinking, willing, reasoning, understanding. Man seed, Moors. The word man means thinker, master, able, noble. Man rises by the elevated degrees of what he thinks. His ladder of salvation has 3 steps: belief, faith, and fruition. That's in your Moor's Quran, chapter 7, verses 25 to 31. And the more rapid his thoughts, the more like unto himself as God, generator, operator, destroyer, he becomes strength. Look at these signs and symbols when I talk about Jabal, Jablum, and Jubilee. So I've been going for an hour. I want to stop, man. I'm not going to have time to get into the state booklet. I think I heard my Empress walk in. But Moors, it's nothing to argue about. If you don't like Noble Drew Ali, that's fine. But I can show you all through history you were Moor. I can show you when people talk about, and I ask them who is Angelo Solomon, and they research Angelo Solomon, the first Moorish Mason. Which, and we. So I'll leave y'all with that. Maybe tomorrow, man, we'll jump into a little science, for you can clearly. Everything about the Moorish science is free information. It's not the temple, but you can't deny the truth of the science. And it's only one prophet, and it's only one temple. And the temple is set up a certain way. And so I went over this plenty times before. If Moors want it, you can go on mypdfbooks.com and get it. But I go over this real clearly and let you know how the temple is set up. The 1099 ain't no trust. It's an affidavit. I show you, I break down the definition of a state and let you know what it means. You got to understand this simple stuff. A state is a people permanently occupying a fixed territory bound together by common law habits, customs, and one body politic, exercising through the medium of an organized government, independent sovereignty and control over all persons and things with its boundaries, capable of making war and peace. And I'm talking about your religious rights and tribal things. So I'm gonna break this all down tomorrow, man, for a person can really be like, man, why are we listening to these people getting us doing all type of crazy stuff? And everything about the temple can be researched. Everything, especially the CCRD, when people be trying to talk about they can nationalize you and go get some silver notes, talk about some 1010 and some goofy trust fund. And it ain't nothing but a religious affidavit. And I got the letter from the CCRD when this lying sheep talk about this, that, and the other, talking about they can nationalize you in some 1010 number. It's some trust fund that they got. And that's how they be hustling people, tell them to go get silver notes. And I've been destroyed that. And people be mad. And I'm like, don't get mad at me. It just, people prey on your lack of understanding and then get mad. And when people try to explain a lie or defend a lie, and I said, you can do that in public opinion, but I bet you can't take that to court. It's like everything, I know what I'm doing. I'm educated. Like I said, I give credit to the scholar. Everything I do is gathered and divinely prepared when it's wisdom. But when a person that takes something that's already in the Library of Congress, like the Zodiac laws, and put a stamp on the front of it, man, that's fraud. And so what's the whole purpose of doing that, putting a stamp on something that's already there? There's no reason. All you got to do is make the information available to people. If you're a body, if you're a religious house, you have the right, or a civic group, whatever you want to call it, you have the right to produce literature for donation for the people. But we don't got to go and take something that's anybody can get and be like, well, why your stamp ain't on this? Talk about the preface or the introduction by this, why they on this, and we got the document. Why? There's no need for that. No matter how nobody feel about it. But I love everyone, man. And like I said, tomorrow we're gonna go over this state booklet. I'm gonna read it all. It's only about 50 pages, but you should have this to be real clear. So when anybody calling themselves Moorish Science Temple of America, they cannot hustle you. They cannot try to sell you no ID. You can shut that stuff down right here. And they should be giving this to people. They should be giving this to people. And the other letter I got, let me see, I think it's right here. I think it's in my other file. That the 101099 is it's not an affidavit. I have that available for you. So like I said, if any other questions? I mean, man, more, I've been doing this too long, man. More should not be confused. More should be coming in, sharing it. Put that ego aside, man, and come learn. The only way you're gonna really know is have the literature, have the information and study it and see what's factual, see what's matter-factual. Stop wanting the ID card like that's gonna make you something. Stop following people all over the world and here and that's not doing real things. Let that go. If a person saying something, say, where's the science at? If a person quoting a book, say, well, do you have the book available for Moors? Don't hold up a book and say, oh, it's at this bookstore and the book costs $1,500. You can go right on mypdfbooks.com and get every book that anybody making videos talking about. And if it's not on our page, all you got to do is leave a comment. I'll go on my database and put it on there for you. I'm telling y'all, man, go on mypdfbooks.com, books with the Z, and look at a lot of books on there people be talking about, just like the Unknown Arab. It's on there for a small price. When they make it available on Amazon again, it's going to be like $1,700 because that's what it was before. But Morris, I do not want y'all to get caught up with people trying to sell y'all ID. If you want to know how the temple is set up and created, you can read it for yourself. A true sheik and a true scholar should not be trying to sell no one nothing. If you a school like I am, the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School, I created a school for Moors that didn't want to get caught up in that rhetoric, which will have the right to do, our religious rights. I'm from the temple. But from my time in the temples, especially being out here in Arizona and Flint, Michigan, I can tell you from experience, from being in the belly of the beast, a lot of them Negroes is full of shit. Excuse my candor. My empress right here and my parents in the living room, they'll tell you. I had to kick Negroes out my building with that criminal shit. They all was criminals. And none of their wives would show up. These Negroes running from the law, most of all of them. And then the temple in my city of Flint, Michigan don't never be open. Don't never be open. I damn near stayed in the parking lot. So don't get me started with the wisdom and teaching and why it ain't temples and why it ain't bodies. I'm right here. Just like you on my page, I'm right here. And we have acres as we build in the school, and I have curriculum. It's nothing hidden, it's nothing secret with me, but it is sacred. So the books that I lectured today, you can go right on mypdfbooks.com, see how much they have them on Amazon, and see how much you can get them from us, the PDFs, and go to Office Max and Staples and have them bind them and print them for you, and it'd be cheaper. So these are the books we was lecturing today. So if y'all more have any questions, man, like I said, tomorrow we're gonna hit this. If you like the teachings, man, it is Cash App $KGB. I always say it. One of my homies that's been following me, man, from Michigan, he's a more. They were like, you shouldn't have to say that, but yes, I do. I try to come back on here, and what I get paid for in the world, I try to teach it to my people for small donations. I try to make the literature available for you, so you don't have to go to Amazon and get all your money ate up for a book that you might not even read. You know, because a lot of Moors don't study. And if you don't study, you can come to a body that really study and break the books down, and you can ask real questions based on history, law, and civics, not nothing based on what nobody's doing, not based on what a group of people doing, because I don't care. I can tell you what we can do and how you can correct yourself and your family. And that's what this is all about with me. So is there any real questions? If not, peace and love to everyone. I'll join and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Any questions? And thanks for the donations, those that donated to Cash App $KGB. Gratitude. Any questions? I'll give it a couple of minutes. Any questions? I hope they legit questions. Don't say nothing crazy because I'm going to block you. If it's anything about somebody or nationalizing or somebody believing in this, I don't care what nobody believes. I can care less. All I do is give you the research, and I tell you who I am. I tell you about my school. Just like if I was trying to a quarter lady or one or empress, I'm not going to talk about nobody else. I'm going to talk about me, and I'm going to try to be heaven to that empress. That's what it's all about. This science and what we doing and what we can prove and what's legal and lawful. And being a noble is a lifestyle, not nothing you put on. Before you even put this fez on, you should be under a clear understanding. Before you even put this fez on your head, because everyone know what this fez is and what it represents. But if you're not acting nobly, yes, it can be a dunce hat. Because the fez don't make no one wise. Watch this. I put this fez on this remote. It's still a remote. And I tell people all day, this does not make you wise. What it should do is let people know that you're under a certain auspices, and you have a basic understanding or a prerequisite of understanding where you walk nobly and you have a certain brothers and sisters that you're accountable to, and you study under a body so you can think real clearly, and you can teach this to your children and raise yourself up and be part of a body. Stop letting people tell you to not be a part of a groups. And I ask you a question: if your child was struggling in college and they need a tutor, and this tutor's on campus, and this is a group of people that look just like your child, and you tell them, oh, don't get in the group, and they just fail. That's crazy. Everything is a type. Everything is a type. And when you find that right type and you don't get with it, that's the sin is on you. The sin is on you when we don't support, and we don't do what we should do, what's right. Instead of letting people get us caught up with catchphrases. No, it is, we should be a part of groups. We should be studying together. We should be doing things as a body collectively. Yes, we should. If we say we Moorish, yes, we should. Because this internet connect the world. And you can join us privately on Zoom every Sunday for our Sunday school, and every Saturday for our adapt lessons. That's what everybody's gonna miss, because I'm not doing that on Instagram and YouTube anymore. You're gonna miss the true systematic teachings, man. You're gonna miss all that science and the law and the history. And then we're getting ready to jump in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness from the main research, not a whole bunch of gathered and compiled law definitions. I'm gonna get into the main research where all the gathered and compiled stuff come from, and cases so you can be like, wow, the main research, the main sources of things. You have to be willing to do that. So with that being said, man, any other questions? Check out mypdfbooks.com, book with the Z. Check out mooreshaberdasher.com. And if y'all have any questions about our temple and school, please check out our Temple and School webpage at bbtsciencetemple.com. That's bbtsciencetemple.com. Peace and love.
Peace.